This week we asked the Ghostfire Gaming Discord community to send us some of their dark fantasy themed homebrews, which we're going to be reacting to, providing some feedback. These were really cool and fun to read through. My name is Byrne, and this is the Ghostfire Discord's dark fantasy homebrews. Let us look at the Dust Wraith by Duvnahim. In certain desert communities, criminals are executed by being sentenced to wander without water throughout the dunes. These hateful individuals often succumb to the elements. As they die, they wish their fate upon others. This combination of hate and the harsh elements leads to the rise of these creatures that crave the water of the living. Love the theme here. It kind of reminds me of something like a Rhyme Hunger from the Grim Hollow Monster Grimoire, or like a Wendigo. I also just like the way that particularly incorporeal undead form in my games is often an emotion or a particularly violent death or something like that is what caused them to transform from this living thing into this dead thing. So I love the theming here. Dust Wraith, medium undead, lawful E. Why lawful? Out of curiosity. Because they're criminals that were executed by being sentenced to wander. Is it a sense of injustice? They're like, I shouldn't have been, made to wander, so by right, I'm going to kill everyone out here. A little known fact is that they can be bargained with. If they are doused completely in water, then they will let passers-by go unmolested. I love anything in a monster's lore that allows some way of defeating the monster without combat necessarily. Armor class, 15, makes sense. Hit points, 75. All right, this is where I get specific. The reason these stat blocks have that plus 20 is because they have a constitution modifier of plus 2 and they have 10 hit dice. So therefore they add 20 to the average of these hit dice, which comes up with the correct number for the hit points that the creature should have. And the reason I linger on this probably very boring fact is because a lot of homebrews for monsters that I see haven't intuited this. They've put in a number without really figuring it out. And to make a monster feel a little bit more grounded within the rules, if you figure out what you want their con modifier to be and then actually figure out what their health would be based on the number of hit dice they have, it just helps it balance it against the other abilities and rules that you might give this monster. Speed, 40 feet, burrow, 20 feet. That makes sense that they can dig underground. For a challenge 5 monster, there's a lot here in terms of skills and saves. Damage resistances, fire, radiant, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks. That all makes sense except for the radiant, because undead usually love radiant damage, but that's okay. We'll go with it for now. Sleep is not a condition in 5e, I don't believe. It's just unconscious. Senses, dark vision, 30 feet. Tremor sense is interesting. There's like a burrowing undead. Language isn't new in life, all makes sense. Rugged complexion. While remaining motionless, the Dust Wraith has advantage on stealth checks to remain unseen. I would change that. To me, taking a stealth check or taking any form of ability check is doing something in the game. Remaining motionless is not doing something. The stealth check would come in when they start to move to try to sneak up on the party. But if the party's walking right by them and they're not moving, I would just, it's cleaner, it's easier, and I would just say, yep, they cannot be seen while they are motionless within the sand. Sense moisture, the Dust Wraith can detect any source of water within 500 feet of it, be it a well, plant, or living creature. Love that. I love any sort of undead creature that can just like sense life. I think that's really cool. Multi-attack. The Dust Wraith makes 2 enervating grasp attacks or 1 mummifying kiss against a creature it is grappling. These can be directly after a successful grapple. I would definitely reword some of this. You've got 2 saving throws going on at the end of the attack here, which is probably 1 too many. By the way this is written, rules as written, it can make 4 attacks in a turn because 2 enervating grasp attacks or 1 mummifying kiss against a creature it is grappling. This can be directly after a successful grapple, which as I'm reading this means that if an enervating grasp attack successfully grapples a creature, it can immediately use mummifying kiss, and then if it attacks with enervating grasp again and grabs another creature, it can then immediately mummifying kiss that creature as well. You just need to streamline this a bit. You can make a max of 2 attacks a turn. 1 of those can be a kiss. It needs to have a target grappled to be able to kiss them. So it's either 2 enervating grasps or a grasp and then a kiss, and then the grasp just does 2d6 plus 4 bludgeoning damage, and then the kiss does the 4d12 on a saving throw only. I don't think it needs to roll because it's already got the target grappled, and then on a failure, the target takes the full damage, a point of exhaustion, possibly have their hit point maximum reduced, and on a success, half damage, and they don't suffer the extra effects. Makes sense. Puff of sand. Vanishing into a vortex of sand, the Dust Wraith teleports up to 60 feet to a location it can see. It teleports beneath the surface of the gains advantage on its next attack roll. A location that is beneath the surface of the sand is one that would technically, in my mind, have total cover from being able to be seen. So the Wraith can't teleport beneath the sand. I would probably simplify this just to be like a Misty Step. I'd probably cut it back to 30 feet, and it's like it disappears in a puff of sand and then reappears within 30 feet. I don't think it needs to teleport to disappear, but I love the theming. The Ossus Strumento by Phoenix Force 50. This old lyre looks and feels like it was crafted from large pieces of bone from some creature that definitely doesn't resemble anything with ordinary bones. This little bit of the lyre right here looks awfully suspicious to me. The Boner Lyre. Wondrous item, very rare, requires attunement by a bard with proficiency with a lyre, which all makes sense to me. The strings resonate with electrical anticipation of being plucked, and holding it makes you want to play it until your fingers bleed. Evocative. You can use an action to play this lyre and cast one of the following spells from it: Toll the Dead, Inflict Wounds, and Blindness Deafness. You may cast these spells at a higher level by expending a hit die, okay, for each additional spell level. Have a range of 60 feet. Creatures that cannot hear are immune to its effects. Just for the sake of like streamlining, if a spell has an effect and it's cast from a magic item, just let things like the range and the effect of the spell and whether someone has to be able to hear it and all that jazz, just let that be described by the effect of the spell. It saves you a paragraph. The less paragraphs in a single ability, the better for me, the more likely I am to use that stat block or that magic item. What I love about this though, it's using hit dice to be able to fuel the magic of the Boner Lyre, also known as the Ossus Strumento, which is a sangromantic element from Grimhollow. This would be a bit more elegant again if this worked on charges like most spellcasting magic items tend to. I kind of like the idea that these can only be cast at a certain level, and if you want to cast them at a higher level, you have to sacrifice hit dice to be able to do so. I see the spells are Toll the Dead, which is a cantrip, Inflict Wounds, which is a touch spell. Now I understand why they made that last paragraph about having a range of 60 feet, is because they've tried to make a ranged inflict wounds. I want to find a ranged necrotic damage spell, and that's probably what I would replace inflict wounds with. There's not much that does necrotic damage at range. Oh, Spirit Guardians. You know why I would love it to be Spirit Guardians? I hate that spell so much. And it's because when I first started playing the game, I used to think it was super unbalanced. It's not at all. It's very well balanced. But the only reason I thought it was unbalanced is I never saw it coming. Every combat, I'd be like, haha, you're surrounded. Now I've got you. I've got like goblins from all sides or whatever. And then the cleric would be like, okay, very well, Spirit Guardians. And it would just melt everything around the party. It's a rage button for me. But I love the idea of like an Orpheus style bard who's plucking the strings of this thing and like singing. The singing is their concentration, and just everything within 15 feet of them is just taking necrotic damage from hearing the song. And it's like an ongoing thing, but it's 3rd level, so it's pretty high. Yeah, I just can't get over this inflict wounds as a ranged thing. But I also get that inflict, you wouldn't want to like play it on the lyre and then touch somebody because it doesn't quite fit within the theme of what this does. And I don't have anything wrong with a ranged version of inflict wounds inherently, but again, it's just about, for me, not wanting to add more to the spell than what the spell already does. I like that it's not a cursed magic item either. The first paragraph leads you to think that it might be cursed, but I like that it's not. It's just the bard is making a decision to sacrifice some of their own life force through their hit dice to do some cool effects. I would change it so that Toll the Dead could be played as a cantrip, and that just adds Toll the Dead to the bard's spell list if the bard doesn't already have it. Toll the Dead might be on the spell list, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And then instead of Inflict Wounds, I would have Dissonant Whispers, because that is a ranged spell. So they're sort of playing it and then scaring off the target, doing that psychic damage. I'd keep Blindness, Deafness, and then leave it untouched otherwise. All right, cool. Purpose. That's nice that Emmy has included the purpose here. Golems are always built for a reason. They are often expensive to create and consume a lot of time, resources, and take a lot of know-how. Below are some options to explain the purpose of your golem. Okay, yeah, I like that. That's cool for like role-playing purposes. A lot of player races, particularly in Volo's Guide to Monsters, I think have sort of extra little role-playing prompts like this. A golem does not age or mature. However, the material that they're made of would decay, rust, or soften. Unarmored defense, you have natural AC of 10 plus proficiency modifier plus either your con or dex modifier. When you are not wearing any armor, you may use a shield and still make use of this feature. The proficiency modifier is interesting. Is that something that Warforged to use? Because this is obviously what this cue's kind of close to. The Warforged goes a slightly different route, and it's like you can integrate armor into your design. Whereas the Golem is like, you are already built of protective material. You don't need to put armor on, which I like. So you have at least AC 13 at level 5, probably 14, 15, if at least one of those is at +2 or +3. Yeah, you're averaging your AC is going to be a lower average unless you're using a shield, but still higher than maybe a wizard. Yeah, that works out. And then by higher levels, once your proficiency modifier becomes 15, you're probably going to have 17 or 18. Created by rules. When you were created, you were given a list of rules. Those rules sustain you, and if you fail to follow them, you will cease to be sentient. You're free to discuss the rules with your GM. Both of you must agree on these rules. This could be vague or strict. Interpret as you wish in character. I don't mind that. It's very flavorful, and it's very GM dependent. You want to get away from GM dependent rules because what the player thinks of how a certain ability functions, a DM might have a very different interpretation of how that ability functions. We can see this a lot in the background bonuses. Sometimes the background bonuses are a little bit vague, so how a GM interprets it is different to how a player interprets it. It doesn't really provide any bonus, and if anything, it's a bit of a penalty. If you fail to follow these rules, you will cease to be sentient. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean that the GM gets control of your character if you break one of these rules? This is a little bit too vague for a character ability for me. This would fit back up in here. You might have purpose, and then you might have like golem trait, and then maybe like always follows a certain number of rules is one of the traits that you can choose. Manufactured sight. As a golem, you have no eyesight, instead having blind sight. I don't know why. Blind sight is really powerful, especially out to 60 feet, because blind sight allows you to like know where a creature is, even if it's like behind a wall or even if it's dark. So I find that to be a bit much. Living construct. Being creation, you have no need to drink. For air or drink. I like that. However, you do need to stay fueled. Your fuel is food. Anything with calories. You also need to take time off each day to let your experiences sink in. Same time as regular sleeping. How long is that? Now we know, because we know the rules of 5e, that that's 8 hours is a long rest, but is that what you meant here? So just consistency in language is important. I think you actually could just get away with the first sentence here, because the rest of it is just like, otherwise you function entirely like everybody else. Set in stone. Being constructed, you learn slower and aren't designated to grow as designed to grow as an individual. After picking your first feat or ability score increase, you must then roll a d20 each time to determine whether or not you can claim it. This just seems mean. Golem material. You can choose between the 6 materials with its own boost and minor benefits. So if you're made of stone, you get +2 to strength, and you can use deception to pretend to be a statue. Baked clay, +2 to wisdom. You have resistance to fire damage. I like this in concept. This is really cool. But this is kind of all it needs to be. I kind of like this. Character, races, species, they don't really need downsides. And this set in stone seems particularly brutal. Thematically, if you think of stories like Frankenstein, if you think of like in Frankenstein's monster, Pinocchio coming to life, those sort of stories of like a constructed thing being imbued with life, usually the themes of the story are about breaking free of their shackles, breaking free of their programming, and proving that they are in fact alive. And this set in stone plays to the first part of that story, but doesn't allow for the continued growth of the character afterwards. But what I love about this Golem homebrew is this bit here, this Golem material and this Golem build kind of dictating what your ability score increases are. Yeah, there's a lot here, probably more than I have time to go through right now, to be honest. The Golem material and the Golem build should be kind of the centerpiece bonuses that you get as part of being constructed, because this feels cool. This feels like you literally are constructing your character out of nothing. Thank you, Emmy. The camera just died. So that's fine. We just don't have any more footage for the video. So this was a bit of a different type of video from what we usually do. If you enjoyed me reacting to some Dark Fantasy homebrews, make sure to comment down below, like this video. If you enjoy it, we'll do more of it. If you don't, we won't. That's how this works. You can also check out this video, which is my own design creation, the Monster Hunter class for Grimhollow. Or you can check out this video, which is alternative rest and recovery rules to make your D&D game feel like a dark fantasy tale.